Hello. In this video, I would like to introduce the Nubia Red Magic 8S Pro review. I trust that this video is very useful for all of you. When you have already watched the video, you know about Nubia Red Magic 8S Pro clearly, and it helps you in making a decision to choose a better smartphone for your work and lifestyles. I am introducing to you the detailed Nubia Red Magic 8S Pro review that is important, especially alternatives, verdict, pros and cons at the end of the video. Please kindly enjoy watching the video as following. With Qualcomm making its overclocked version of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 SoC available, OEMs are updating their top-tier smartphone lineups with the latest and greatest. Nubia is also sticking to its usual schedule and has recently introduced the Red Magic 8S Pro lineup, successors to the Red Magic 8 Pro series from earlier this year. As one would expect, the most notable upgrade is the SoC itself. Now, the Red Magic 8S Pro and 8S Pro Plus run on the SM8550AC Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 silicon, which in turn is an overclocked version of the original SM8550AB Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. The SM8550AC, in particular, was previously exclusive to Samsung Galaxy devices and was known as Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy. The upgrade promises 5% CPU and 5.7% GPU performance gains over the last generation, while the 8S Pro series upgraded its ICE cooling system to version 12 to keep up with the sustained load demands. Other improvements to the Red Magic 8S Pro reside in the design, as now the RGB lighting isn't exclusive to the premium option only. We have the 8S Pro for review, which boasts a bigger 6000 mAh battery than its more expensive sibling but settles for slower 65W charging as opposed to 165W charging on the 8S Pro Plus. Everything else is pretty familiar, except for the memory options. The 8S Pro gets an extra 12GB per 512GB configuration, while the 8S Pro Plus now offers 16GB per 256GB by default and caps at 24GB per 1TB. Despite the small changes in the formula, the Red Magic 8S Pro deserves a review of its own, and we dive deep into the improved performance, cooling, and the updated Red Magic OS 8 to see what new features it has to offer. Design and ergonomics. The new Nubia Red Magic 8S Pro borrows the 8 Pro's design with just a couple of changes. For instance, the LED illuminated cooling fan is no longer limited to the more expensive Plus version, so the standard 8S Pro also has RGB lighting. The material finishes and color schemes are different, too. The new 8S Pro has a midnight black, platinum and aurora colorways, with the latter being a semi-transparent back cover. Anyway, we have the platinum version, which looks awesome. It has that industrial vibe to it, and it's basically a huge, brushed slab of metal. The ergonomics remain unchanged: flat side frame, sharp corners and edges, and flat front and back. The platinum version doesn't seem to be fingerprint friendly, and it remains clean to the naked eye. While it's nice to look at, it's not the easiest phone to handle. It's a big device with a huge 6.8-inch display, sharp edges and a relatively slippery metal chassis. Then again, it makes sense when holding it horizontally during gameplay. It feels secure and comfortable to hold during gaming. Speaking of, the right side accommodates two pressure-sensitive shoulder triggers with 520 Hz polling rate and 7.4 milliseconds response time. There's also the physical switch for entering the gaming mode, which Nubia calls Game Space. More on that later. The right side is also home to the exhaust vent for the cooling fan and the power button. On the left, we have the air intake and the volume rocker. The bottom houses the USB-C connector and the main speaker grille, whereas the top has the other speaker grille and the 3.5mm audio jack. Around the front, the Red Magic 8S Pro impresses with an uninterrupted full-screen display and razor-thin bezels all around. All bezels look symmetrical, while the under-display selfie camera can't be noticed at all. In terms of overall aesthetics, the Red Magic 8S Pro in Platinum is quite different from before. The styling is very neutral with the subtle RGB LED illuminated piece next to the cooling fan giving it away. Even the camera design is pretty simple, just 3 lenses sticking out from the back. So if you are not a fan of the usual gamer aesthetics, the Platinum colorway is probably your best bet. 6.9-inch OLED running at 120 Hz. The Red Magic 8S Pro features the same display as its predecessor. It has an unorthodox 1116x2480px resolution and has almost all of the bells and whistles. We say almost because there are no official HDR certifications, but the 120 Hz refresh rate is at hand. In theory, the display should support HDR10 content at the very least, and we found it to be true in the YouTube app, but no support HDR10 Plus or Dolby Vision content on Netflix and Amazon Prime, though. The advertised 1300 nits of peak brightness may very well be possible when displaying HDR content, but we weren't able to see the panel peak above 785 nits with 75% APL, while a manual slider adjustment got us up to 529 nits. Although this isn't industry-leading, the display offers a comfortable outdoor viewing experience even on a bright sunny day. It's also a huge improvement over the previous generations, which didn't offer a brightness boost. In terms of color accuracy, the display isn't amazing right out of the box. The whites and grays are too bluish, but opting for the soft color preset fixes them to some extent and even lowers the average to 2000 to just 2.2. That's a solid improvement. Battery life. Since the Red Magic 8 Pro and 8S Pro share the same hardware, almost identical chipsets, the same display and battery pack, it's no surprise we got similar, if not identical, battery results. The differences are mostly due to statistical error. Either way, the battery endurance is excellent. Phones with a big OLED and flagship-grade SoC rarely reach over 110 hours of overall endurance score, let alone 130 hours. The big 6000 mAh battery definitely helps, though. Charging speed. We are once again surprised by how fast the 6000 mAh battery charges with the provided 65W charger. A full charge took only 35 minutes. While a 15-minute cycle replenished 56% of the battery. The Red Magic 8S Pro seems to charge a couple of minutes faster than its predecessor, although statistical error could explain the difference. It's negligible, after all. The battery menu hides a couple of interesting features, including turbo charging and, more importantly, charge separation. This one is pretty neat. It redirects the power from the charger directly to the hardware and bypasses the battery. This saves the battery in the long run if you often play games when charging. It reduces the heat on the battery and mitigates overcharging. Speakers. The Red Magic 8S Pro is equipped with 2 5-magnet stereo speakers. One at the bottom and one at the top that doubles as an earpiece. Sound comes out of the earpiece grill and the opening on the top side of the frame. DTS-X ultrasound tuning is also at hand, just like on the Red Magic 8 Pro. We got almost identical loudness of -24.3 LUFS, which is enough for a very good score. We are pretty sure Nubia used the same speakers, as these sound identical. The highs and mids are a bit screechy at maximum volume, but turning the volume down a notch makes everything sound better and more balanced. The bass is pronounced and clear vocals. Red Magic OS 8 based on Android 13. The Red Magic 8S Pro comes with an upgraded Red Magic OS version 8, compared to version 6 on the previous 8 Pro. However, the differences between the new and the old version of the system are small. We did find some missing features in the new version and changed iconography around the system menus. The software feels more polished. The UI overhaul came with the Red Magic 8 Pro, so Red Magic OS is now more in line with stock Android and is simpler looking, in a good way. There are still tons of features and customizations to go through, and it's still heavily customized ROM, not your typical vanilla Android. Pretty much every aspect of the UI is customizable and can be tuned to your liking. It has tons of customizable clock styles for the lock screen, themes, icon adjustments, etc. ZTE phones have always had special attention to their always-on display functionality. You can even set looping, cool-looking GIFs and videos. Naturally, this would consume more power. The rather subtle LED lighting on the back can also be customized to your liking. What you can do in terms of two-app multitasking is enable split-screen view. That is done from a special icon in the recent apps carousel. Interestingly, the floating window function is no longer available in this version of the software. The fingerprint reader works as well as ever. It's fast, reliable and accurate. It also doubles as a heart rate monitor. It can be surprisingly accurate but is a bit inconsistent for our taste. Game space and screen casting. The game space in-game overlay has experienced a major redesign with Red Magic OS 6. It now consists of two large, symmetrical menus on each side of the display. Most of the functions are readily accessible with a single tap, which is greatly appreciated. You can monitor your CPU and GPU frequency as well as, crucially, in-game FPS using an overlay. There are some quick access shortcuts for supported messenger apps as well for more convenient window-based chatting while in-game. Most of the interesting and powerful settings are located in their own submenu within the overlay. You can adjust CPU and GPU performance profiles, screen sensitivity and sampling rate, and enable a particular visual profile for the display to make certain game elements more easily visible. Game Shorthand is a brand new feature within Game Space. It is basically a library where you can store game screenshots and attach notes to them. You can then quickly view up to 50 of these at a time, great for things like point-and-click adventure games for remembering clues and puzzles. Plugins are a relatively new addition to the Red Magic game space. Unfortunately, like many other parts of the UI, these suffer from poor and incomplete translations, and it is somewhat difficult to discern what each one does. X-Gravity is the system Nubia uses for mapping external devices like a controller or keyboard and mouse to on-screen controls. This is something that the Red Magic 8S Pro lets you easily do out of the box, which might be considered a bit controversial for competitive play since it offers a major advantage. Auxiliary line is a way to define on-screen circles that appear around your character and signify things like the area of effect of certain skills or attacks, particularly useful for MOBA games. Stopwatches give the player an array of on-screen stopwatches to quickly time things like a skill or spell cooldown on enemies. The crosshair feature is particularly useful for shooters. Not only does it draw a crosshair overlay on the screen, but it can also zoom into a particular area of the image. Of course, there are the shoulder triggers, one of the best gaming features of the Red Magic 8S Pro by far. They provide a really nice experience for racing and first-person shooter games. The software lets you map certain controls to the triggers and adjust the pressure sensitivity to avoid mistouches. Circling back to X-Gravity and the ability to map in-game, on-screen controls to physical accessories like a joystick or keyboard and mouse, it should be considered how major of a feature this is on the Red Magic 8 Pro. The phone itself offers several convenient ways to connect to peripherals. First off, there is USB Alt mode. Using a supported dongle, you can easily get an HDMI or DP output out of the Red Magic 8 Pro and USB inputs back into the phone. This is a great way to connect it directly to a monitor or TV. If that seems too cumbersome for you and you would rather just use a PC to play your mobile games, then there is Red Magic Studio, a Windows app that lets you screencast over Wi-Fi or USB cable connected directly to the PC. It works at a refresh rate of up to 120 Hz. The whole pairing process with the desktop app is seamless and extremely easy. You can set up different mapping profiles for all the games you play, and the keyboard/mouse input is pretty solid. The streaming feature works in all menus of the phone and apps, not just games, so it may come in handy for more than just gaming. The gestures and keyboard typing feel native. You can even use the phone itself as a trackpad for touch input, or alternatively opt to have it entirely autonomously functional so you can cast one app to a TV or monitor while using your phone for something entirely different. The whole system is extremely flexible and works surprisingly well. Props to Nubia. The handset can also be used as a touchpad or just use the app for screencasting. In terms of under-the-hood gaming-related features, the Red Magic 8 Pro has a dedicated secondary gaming chip called the Red Core 2. It is primarily meant to handle things like audio and haptic feedback processing and RGB lighting control, so that these tasks can be offloaded from the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 main chipset for better performance. The Red Magic 8 Pro also includes something called a Cube Performance Optimizer, CPO, which promises to smooth out in-game frame rates without increasing power consumption. We assume it is a sort of MEMC chip, though Nubia isn't particularly descriptive when it comes to its nature. The Red Magic 8 Pro also does something Nubia calls quintuple buffering for generated game frames using a system called Magic GPU. The idea here is that different systems like screen recording or casting might want to access GPU frames concurrently and, without sufficient buffering, might interfere with the frame count that actually ends up on display. This system prioritized display frames before anything else. Cooling system and sustained performance. Even though this isn't a generational upgrade, Nubia says the cooling system is improved over the Red Magic 8 Pro. It's now called ICE 12 cooling system as it adds an additional graphene layer positioned under the display for improved heat dissipation. This sheet is said to improve the cooling of the battery during charging too. In addition to the graphene layer, the system incorporates 11 other layers that include a big vapor chamber, composite graphene sheet, aluminum frame in the middle, copper foil, etc. Cooling surface area is 2068 mm2 and is aided by the well-known cooling fan with shark fins design. It can go up to 20,000 RPM, and as we've established in previous reviews, it's not just a gimmick. It helps improve sustained performance quite a bit. The cooling fan's effect is demonstrated. But before we get into that, take a look at how the device performs during long workloads without the fan. It's able to keep steady clock speeds at 100% CPU load for an hour. The system retains 77% of the CPU's theoretical performance, which is an excellent result considering the demanding Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. Switching on the cooling fan makes the graph even smoother, and the system utilizes 88% of the CPU's capabilities in the same time frame. Exceptional result. In both cases, however, the phone felt pretty warm, which is to be expected given the all-metal chassis. All in all, it looks like Nubia has indeed improved the cooling system of the 8S Pro, compared to the 8 Pro from earlier this year. Camera. The Red Magic 8S Pro sports a fairly new main camera sensor. It's the same one from the previous 8 Pro, but it's a huge upgrade over the last couple of Red Magic generations before that. The handset now uses a Samsung GN550MP ISOCELL sensor. It's January 1st 57-inch in size with 1.0 m pixels, and it's paired with an f/1.9 lens. The secondary camera remains the same as before, 8 MP, f/2.2, 1/4.0 inch, 1.12 m with 120° FOV, 13 mm, ultra-wide shooter. Last and least of all, there is a 2 MP fixed-focus Galaxy Core GC02M1 macro camera on the back of the Red Magic 8S Pro. The Red Magic 8 Pro has an under-display selfie camera. Nubia says it is a second-generation unit developed with BOE, the display manufacturer, to improve the camera's peak brightness and color accuracy. We can confirm that they've done a great job at concealing the camera. There's no way to notice it in day-to-day usage. Regarding hardware, the selfie camera is the same 16MP OV16E1Q as found on the Red Magic 7 Pro and some other devices like the ZTE Axon 30 and Axon 40 Ultra. It is a 1/2.8-inch sensor with 1.12 m pixels and fixed focus. Competition. Although we are many generations into the niche Android gaming smartphone market, it hasn't matured yet, so the choice is somewhat limited. Sure, you can go for regular flagship phones running the powerful Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, but the thing is, the Red Magic 8S Pro is pretty competitive in terms of pricing as well. You can even argue it's just an affordable flagship. Especially with the sleek new design, which could potentially appeal to non-gamers. However, neither the camera nor the software experience is flagship-worthy. So if you've exhausted options like the Samsung Galaxy S23 lineup, the OnePlus 11, Xiaomi's 13 series, or even the iQOO 11 and you are dead set on getting a gaming-ready smartphone, then maybe the Asus ROG Phone 6 series will tickle your fancy. That's at least the first real competitor to the Red Magic 8S Pro we can think of. The vanilla Asus ROG Phone 6 is a nice start, but if you want to get closer to the 8S Pro's price tag, then considering the ROG Phone 6D or the 6D Ultimate is a good idea. It runs on a very potent Dimensity 9000 Plus SoC, and Asus gaming lineup is known for its wide support for HRR gaming and big ecosystem of gaming accessories. If you can get a hold of one of the few remaining Xiaomi Black Shark 5 Pro phones on the market, you may also want to consider this one. It has physical pop-up shoulder triggers, powerful hardware, although last year's, and all the bells and whistles you'd expect from a gaming phone. Verdict. Nubia has plenty of experience with gaming phones at this point, and it shows. The OEM knows how to put together a great gaming phone without much fluff. Despite its flaws like not-so-amazing camera experience, awkwardly translated UI and the lack of HDR support, the new 8S Pro is a solid gaming solution. We still like the design carried over from the 8 Pro and even managed to improve upon cooling. The 8S Pro has by far one of the best, if not the best, cooling solution we've tested. Continuous and strenuous workloads are a non-issue for the 8S Pro, so long gaming sessions shouldn't be a problem too. Display is great and battery life is impressive, to say the least, especially considering that the cell has to power up the overclocked Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. And, of course, the gaming-centric features are, as always, nice and thoughtful for the better part. Pros. Unique flat, all-metal design. Large and fast 120Hz OLED panel, the UD selfie camera is inconspicuous. Unrivaled battery life, fast charging. Plenty of gaming-oriented features, including pressure-sensitive shoulder triggers. Flexible and well-executed external display and peripherals gaming experience. One of the best internal cooling solutions around, the fan helps a lot. Nice-sounding stereo speakers. Notably improved image quality on the main camera compared to past models. Cons. The internal fan can be quite noisy. Ultra-wide camera quality is not very good, while the selfie camera quality is downright bad. The software is still plagued by awkward English translations from Chinese. Thank you for watching. See you next videos.